CFR Network, CFR News. Good day, good night, all. Ni hao, shalom, wassalam, all of the universal greetings. As you can see, I have a very, very special guest with me across the pond, as they say. Young lady, please introduce yourself to the audience.
Well, I used to be a young lady a long time ago, but now I'm just an old bag.
I wouldn't go that far, sis. I wouldn't go that far.
But yeah, so anyway, I my name is Cynthia McKinney, and I served 12 years in the US Congress, 4 years in the Georgia legislature. And while I was in the Congress, I took on some pretty important issues,
Yes.
life and death issues, as far as I'm concerned. But of course, when you do that, the powers that be get very, very, very angry at you. And
Certainly.
so when I had, people calling me and visiting me and trying to cajole me one way and then cajole me the other way into taking certain positions. And I was pretty steadfast. They said, okay, this girl is hopeless. Let's just get rid of her. So they got rid of me one time by way of spurious legitimate elections.
Yes.
And so then I did a comeback attempt and I won. And so what did they do? They did it again because I went back to my old ways and was having 911 hearings and all kinds
Yes.
of asking Donald Rumsfeld the most
Important
inconvenient
questions.
questions. Yeah, and it, so they said, oh, this girl, we can't teach her. She doesn't know her place. And
Yeah.
so they kicked me out again. And at that point, I had a young son who was in school. And, as a working mom, I was honest and I needed to continue to work to put
Yes.
my son through school. And then I put him through law school. And so I forgot about the politics because, quite honestly, the situation got worse and
Yeah.
worse and worse. And while I was looking for an opportunity to do another comeback, it just never happened because the politics got so bad. And now I think the politics in the US is almost at its nadir.
Yeah.
It can't get much worse,
Not at
but
all.
so I'm overseas because of course can't, when you make the powers that be angry with you, you can't get a job.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm overseas and I teach undergraduates political science, and I teach leadership and change and organizational development and entrepreneurship to master's MBA students and master's in public policy students. So my plate is pretty full.
Yes.
It's pretty rewarding. So for those who say that, you go up against the bad guys and you end up dying, well, there's life after going up against the bad guys.
And you're living
And,
proof clearly.
and I'm living proof of it because I am being fulfilled every day in my professional life. And the students, actually, I have academic freedom where I am.
Hmm.
So I can teach the truth and I
Yeah.
can red pill my students. And
Hmm.
in fact, I had one student ask me some questions, a series of questions just today. Like, what one question was, what is your particular leadership style? That was in the leadership course that I teach.
Hmm.
And I said, well, I would like to think of myself as a transformational leader for all of the students. Now I've taught about 1,000 students, and I've tried to instill it, first of all, allow them, encourage them to explore what their values are,
Yes.
because they are going to be our leaders for tomorrow.
Hmm.
And we know that if you don't know yourself, then somebody along can come along and put some stuff in your head and make you think you're a leader, but you're actually a follower and a coward, and you're doing somebody else's bidding.
Yes.
So I want them to know who they are. I want them to know, in fact, the undergrads have an assignment that all of my undergrads do, which is answer the question. And I have several questions as a part of the assignment, but the assignment is called Who Am I? And
Hmm.
I specifically asked them about ethical dilemmas that they have faced so far, what their values are, so that we can begin the process of having them think about what kind of leaders they're going to be. Now, that's not in the leadership course, that's just a political science course. But the important thing for them to understand is that no matter if they're computer science majors, engineering majors, pharmacy majors, it
Hmm.
doesn't really matter, because they are going to be leaders and they need to have backbone.
Yes. And integrity, most importantly, as well.
That's right. That's right. So that's sort of, what I do. And over the course of the years, I've probably now taught well over 1,000 students, and they are making their mark locally in various business ventures and things like that. And the
Excellent.
politics is kind of closed right now,
Yeah.
but there will come an opening, and when that opening arises, I absolutely am certain that some of my friends are going to be there. They'll be creating that opening and making it wider, so more of their fellow countrymen or country people
Yes.
can participate in the political process.
Which is ultimately what the political process in the essence, in its true natural essence, that's what it's supposed to do. To serve the people, by the people, for the people.
That's exactly right. So for my undergrads, I give them a pretty good dose, not a whole lot of it, because I have to cover so much
Of course.
sort
Content.
of mandatory material, but I give them a pretty good dose in political systems, and the fact that the political system that is the most quote unquote popular, the one that predominates, which is indirect democracy. I let them know that basically indirect democracy is going to provide you a kakistocracy. And if you are not able to punish the people in the kakistocracy who are committing crimes or just incompetent or whatever, that eventually what you're going to be confronted with is psychopathocracy.
Hmm.
And of course, in the United States, that's where we are. We literally have psychopaths that populate the deep state of the United States. They're able, not only willing to, but they are able to leverage the great power of the United States for
Yes.
their own purposes. And that means, though, that they have no regret whatsoever at what is happening to the rest of the population, or
Not
for
at all.
that matter, to those populations that they're bombing or doing regime change on,
Changes.
that
Yes.
sort of thing. So I caution my students that just because the newspaper or whatever will say that you have a republic and the republic is the best form of governance and that
Yeah.
sort of thing, I let them know that what you have is indirect democracy, not
Yeah.
direct democracy. And as a
Hmm.
result, you've got a kakistocracy. And if you look around at all of the republics, I think republics have become as archaic and anachronistic as monarchies were back in the day when the republic was the answer.
Yes, yes. Well, what is your idea, utopia wise? What political system, or does there need to be a total rehaul and a creation of a new political system which is going to provide what it says on the tin kind of thing?
You know, that part, like, sort of like a knee-jerk response, I would say, well, I think indirect democracy is the place that we should start. And so, sorry, direct democracy
I was going to
is the
say.
place that we should, yeah, that's right, is the place that we should start. And so therefore, we've got Switzerland as one kind of example of a
Mhm.
direct democracy. We had the Jamahiriya in Libya as a example of a third world or a global South example of a direct democracy. And, they were bombed to smithereens. And so basically they don't have a government now.
No,
And
not
that
at all.
suits the people just fine.
It does.
In the book, when Donald Trump calls certain countries S-hole countries,
Yes.
I don't use that kind of language, but he called them S-hole countries. I thought it was important for me to put together some academicians and scholars who could counter what Donald Trump had to say.
Hmm.
So that resulted in a book called How the US Creates S-hole Countries. That's the
Wow.
name of the book, published by Clarity Press. And basically, I had been to many of these countries that I included in the book, like Puerto Rico, even though I understand that's not a country, maybe it
Indeed.
should be a country, So I included Puerto Rico, and I included
Haiti?
Vietnam. I included Haiti.
Hmm.
I included Venezuela. I included Somalia was a country that I had not visited. So I said, let me take Somalia and let me write about Somalia.
Yes.
What I learned while doing the research for that chapter was that I didn't realize that Somalia had oil.
Oh,
I didn't
yes.
know Somalia had oil.
Mhm.
So what happened in the whole Somalia experience was, you remember, Somalia didn't have a government, sort of like Libya right now.
Yep.
Somalia didn't have a government for like over 20 years. The reason they didn't have a government was because Siad Barre, sort of like the Jamahiriya, because I don't want to personify 7 million Libyans into one person, because that was not the case. But
Yes.
anyway, the leader of Somalia at the time was Siad Barre. He told the Western oil companies, you've got to pay more for the oil that you're taking from Somalis. And so a whole regime change
Mm.
operation was then orchestrated,
Yeah.
and friends of mine who are Somalis participated in that, because, of course, Siad Barre was a military strongman. He had been in power for way too long. And
Yes.
so Somalis were saying, well, yeah, it's time for him to go. What they did not realize was that they had been manipulated into
Of
making
course.
that choice and becoming active on that political issue. So they became active, got rid of Siad Barre, and pure chaos ensued.
Hmm.
Well, So now, what I have learned through my congressional time to say is he who has a plan in the midst of chaos will
Yes.
win.
Yes.
So we have a group of people whose business it is to create chaos because they
Exactly.
also have a plan to utilize that chaos to their benefit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happened with Somalia. So for 20 plus years, oil was being extracted from Somalia and they didn't pay a dime. The oil companies didn't pay a dime. They were able to enact or implement force majeure, and that then allowed them to do the extraction of the oil without any contract, which they did. And so then finally the Somalis are able to do something, and then they're struck with Al-Shabaab, which is the ISIS of Somalia that seems
Yes.
to strike whenever it's convenient to
Mm.
strike. And then they saddled the Somali people with a constitution that the Somali people didn't even write. It was the Western states that wrote
Yeah.
the Somali constitution without the participation of Somalis. So, what I learned in writing that chapter, in the end, what I said was I think that we're going to see the Somaliaization of the African continent. And we could certainly say that the Somaliaization of Libya has occurred.
Hmm. Well, you've still got, correct me if I'm wrong, open air slave markets in Libya
Yes, that's right.
where
You are not wrong.
Afro-Libyans are being sold like we're going back 300-400 years. This is does not make any kind of sense in the Gregorian year of 2022, where there's so
It
much quote unquote opportunity for people, Cynthia. Hmm?
Well, you know, what the Libyans wanted, and they're still fighting, by the way, but the Libyans wanted, I went to several conferences in Libya where they talked about Africa's problem with the brain drain.
Hmm.
And they wanted to utilize, because, you know, in the United States, just to serve as an example, in the United States, the that is most highly educated come from what state? They come from Nigeria. There are
Mm.
more Nigerian PhDs in the United States than of any other immigrant group. And you know, the United States is comprised of immigrant groups. So,
Exactly.
right. So imagine if there were a place for those Nigerian PhDs to do something in Africa. And that's what they were building. And then you had Hugo Chavez
Hmm.
in South America
Yeah.
building the same kind of relationship on the South American continent, but not just the relationship among South Americans. Libya and Venezuela had joined forces. And what they created was the ASA, the Africa South American Summit. And so you get Telesur, which is the Venezuelan television channel.
Hmm.
You get Radio Sur, which is their radio station, Sur meaning South. And basically, what they were trying to do together was unite the global South. I'm not surprised that Libya is the way it is, and that Venezuela was
Yeah.
subsequently targeted the way it has been.
Because of that, pardon self, because of that move and that strive for independence and for unity as well. Because ultimately, one country can't do it alone. You can make steps to do that, but it's about unifying forces and trying to quote unquote do for self, not relying
That's
on
right.
the Western powers and the Western media, because that's what the influence is in Africa and in the Caribbean and in Europe. America is the big golden land of opportunity, aka the new world, where if you go there, if you work hard, you can be as successful as you want. So for the
That's right.
minds of the people who aren't in America, in the wilderness of North America, it's like that's where I want to go. Forget where I've come from, forget my family. I'm going to make myself as most educated as possible. I'll get these PhDs and these other qualifications, and I'm heading to that new world.
That's right. But as I teach my undergrads, that only makes you a part of the great culling machine.
Hmm.
And once you do that, or you work in their corporations at home, what you're ending up doing is, instead of all of the intellectual talent that you have
Yeah,
going to make your home country better,
enriched. Hmm.
you're enriching the other side. And that, that's one of the other issues, that why is it that the United States can saddle its young people with hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt? My PhD cost $138,000 in student loans. Okay,
Ridiculous.
so it's absolutely ridiculous. So you can saddle your talent, your home talent, with student loans, say in the US, because you can import that talent from socialist countries that
Yeah.
subsidize the education of their citizens for
Yes.
far cheaper.
Hmm.
And they are willing to pay for what they do that's better than what they could get at home, but it's not nearly what they deserve or what they would have to pay a US citizen who hopes to one day be able to pay off the student loan.
Yeah.
But as I said in 2008, when the Green Party nominated me for their presidential candidate, there's something fundamentally and profoundly wrong with a society that would put a banker in between a professor and a student, that would put an insurance bureaucrat in between a doctor and a patient.
Yeah.
There's something fundamentally wrong with that society.
You don't see it anywhere else. You don't see it anywhere else. It's shocking. It's a culture shock the first time visiting America. Just seeing, depending on what state you go, if you go to New York, that's a very shocking state and place to go. But just the American culture, everything is so fast paced. Again, going to your big metropolitan cities and stuff, it's fast paced. No one's really. You go south, obviously, a lot more courtesy. People have a bit more time, a bit more of a slower pace. Whereas up north, it's a rat race. It's all about getting to your destination as quickly as possible, doing your 10-hour shift or whatever, go into the part-time job just to pay these exorbitant prices for rent to live in these
That's right.
little.
Well, Southern girl like me, I'm scared to go up to New York City. The first, a true story. The first time I went to New York City, I was actually invited to go there by this organization, which I do believe was a deep state organization. And I think that it was like a dress rehearsal where they were
Oh,
posing all these questions to me, blah, 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 blah. What do you think of this? What do you think of blah, 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 blah. And I
mm,
think what they do is they, sort of score you on your answers. And if you give them the answers that they're looking for, then you can become their girl, and they will sponsor you and give you this and give you that sort of thing. Well, obviously I failed, but what happened was, it was the first time in my life that I had ever seen two grown men fighting in the street.
Oh
They
gosh,
were
yeah.
fighting in the street in New York City. I said, "Oh no, I never saw that before. I mean, I'm just a Southern girl. I don't know anything about this kind of behavior."
Mm.
I literally ran down the street. I was doing like this when I went into a bagel shop. Right? And the people in the bagel shop are looking at me like I'm crazy because, of course, they don't think anything of people
Yes,
fighting in the street. It's a normal occurrence. And
they've been
now,
desensitized.
that's right. Now in New York City, they're having stabbings. They're
Yes.
having they're having these random stabbings. It's like nobody didn't, they didn't have a relationship or
Uh-huh.
anything with these people. It's just these people just feel like stabbing. So they just go to the subway station and they start stabbing. That's what's
Yes.
happening in New York City right now. I
Mm.
mean, the United States has become mad.
It really has. It's so. And what about Minnesota? Doing that crazy law thing about if you get arrested for attempted murder, that like there's no bail for all of these weird, like serious crimes, rape, all this kind of stuff that they'll just bail you straight out. You're in and out. It's like a revolving door. Why on earth would they enact that?
Well, there's I can't explain why something like that would pass, except that you get caught up in the moment, and you've got these I don't know, it's Minnesota you didn't, but in Wisconsin you would have had the police shootings or whatever. And then you get into this sort of thing where the solutions are handed out, and those solutions are not very well thought out, but they
Mm,
make good 30-second sound bites.
mm,
And so, you can put that on a bumper sticker, defund the police, and it is not really, it's somebody thought it out, but not the people who need security and protection are the ones that thought it out, right? And maybe the agenda there is to, maybe there's a lot of money in what can I say, policing, and so
Oh yeah.
therefore maybe you want to privatize that. I can never say what the motives are of the people who come up in the back rooms with these slogans and
Yeah.
ideas, because one thing I can tell you is not to help me.
Of course not. It seems outside of producing and creating total chaos. Obviously, as you said and alluded to earlier, there is clearly a defined plan in place, whether that is the privatization of the militarized police state force that you guys
Yes.
have over there, or another agenda. But there's clearly going to be a solution to the chaos which is roaming state to state.
That's right. That's right. And so now, what did I say? He who has a plan in the
Hmm.
midst of chaos will win. So first, you have to create the chaos. Let me give you an example. So this whole idea of radical Islamic terrorism. Okay, back in the mid 1970s, under President Carter and Zbigniew Brzezinski,
Yes.
they came up with a plan.
Hmm.
Well, we've got to rile up these Muslims so that we can use Islam to our benefit.
Hmm.
And one of the things that we also need to do is to divide Islam so that all these different factions and all can we need to balkanize Islam so that we can use that balkanization process to our benefit. Okay, so that was done. Okay, but now how was that done? The United States government became one of, if not the biggest producer, publisher of Qurans. the United States began to finance madrasas. Now, all of this was happening in Pakistan because they used Pakistan as the staging area to dislodge the Soviets from Afghanistan back at that time. That was the plan. So in order to utilize these people who are going to be called radical Islamic terrorists, first, you have to create them. And that was what US tax dollars did in Pakistan, which is why Pakistan is a mess today, part of why it is a mess today. And Imran Khan is doing his best to unmess Pakistan so that it can become an independent, sovereign state participating in the global community as a full partner. This is the kind of thing that happens over and over and over again. And if you look at the Great Reset, what is necessary for the Great Reset or the Fourth Industrial Revolution to take hold? Well, if you go back to the change theory, and the change theory states that change can occur when dissatisfaction levels are very high, an alternative vision is articulated, and first steps toward that vision are known. And together, the dissatisfaction level, the vision, and the first steps are so powerful that they're able to overcome the resistance, sort of against the status quo.
Yes.
Those people who have the power now. Okay, so if you've got World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, what do they need to do in order to overcome the resistance of people who are kind of like things the way they are, or kind of would like an alternative vision? What do they need to do? Well, first of all, they need to scare the bejesus out of you. So then you come up with a SARS coronavirus 2 that will kill you. And then you got to come up with a vaccine against it, notwithstanding the fact that if you take hydroxychloroquine or ivermectin or, or just increase your vitamin D levels, you should be able to get along just fine. But anyway, so then they create the problem, and then they create the solution. And the solution actually, though, winds you, is like a spiral that takes you up tighter and tighter and tighter. Strategy of tension. Remember the strategy of tension in Operation Gladio. What did they do in Europe? What they wanted to do was to make sure that the European people didn't have the opportunity to elect the governments of their choice, but they were going to elect right-wing governments. And that was particularly targeted at Italy and Greece, that have a tendency to be a little bit more progressive than the other European states. And so train stations were blown up, shopping areas were bombed, and the Red Brigades were hollowed out. The leadership of the Red Brigades were sent to prison, and then they were taken over. Red Brigades continued to act, but the actors inside the Red Brigades were CIA people. They were paid by the CIA. And they ratcheted up the tension so that the Europeans would be so afraid that they wouldn't dare go against the narrative or go against the propaganda and actually vote for somebody who was liberal or progressive or communist, for crying out loud. So they did Operation Gladio and the strategy of tension, and we're seeing that played out now with COVID and what's going to come after COVID, because there's not enough tension yet that needs to be released. And once they've got us wound up and wound up and wound up, then they're going to come with the solution, which is transhumanism or the singularity. They've already told us what their plans are. They want to put it inside us, and it'll be good for you because now you can go to the store and you don't even have to carry that purse.
Oh no, you don't need to have no purses anymore, and all your medical data, it's all going to be there. So they're not going to give you
That's
the
right.
wrong drugs. It's going to be so happy and helpful. It
That's
sounds wonderful.
right. Sounds like utopia, right? But it's their utopia. It's not ours. It's not
It's
of
not.
our creation.
Hmm.
So we have to be very careful about, like I call myself a revolutionary, but I am very clear. I want my revolutionary with my values. I do not want, revolution with my values. I don't want their
No,
great reset or fourth industrial revolution with their values. No, because I know that their values mean the death of too many people.
exactly. I mean, fourth industrial revolution. The third was enough. I think the third industrial revolution was more than enough. Robotics, AI, cloud
Yes.
storage. What are we talking about? 5G isn't any quicker or isn't any more beneficial than 4G. Like, what are we
Yeah,
doing? Apart from
that's right.
consuming, like, oh, the iPhone 29's out. I'm gonna queue up for a whole week
Right,
and I want to be the
right,
first person to get it. Why?
right. Because my iPhone 28 is obsolete now. I mean, they've taken it to absurd levels. And the more we play into, I was just talking to my students today about my son who used to define himself by the brands of clothes that he wore, and like the obliging silly stupid mom, I was buying these brands
Hmm.
until one day it clicked for me. I ain't buying another brand.
Mm.
And at the same time, though, independently, it clicked for him. I am not enhanced by the brand of clothes I wear.
Far from it.
And it was like all of a sudden, we both, in our own ways, realized that we had been had and
Mm.
that it was about to stop. And it did stop. And so now you hardly will see me in anything that's branded. Why? Because I know who I am. And I don't
Yes.
get self-esteem, and I don't get a boost in my identity
Hmm.
as a result of wearing somebody else's name on my chest.
Thank you very much. Very well put. And for some, because I always like to play righteous advocate, some they have to be in the world in that respect. So they're working hard. They want to quote unquote treat themselves. And in their eyes, having that label, that other person's name plastered all over that bag, maybe, or over that jacket, that t-shirt, whatever it is, that's their bit of like, that's my reward for all the hard work that I've done. So I can understand and also understand that element of it because we are working
Mhm.
hard, and if you do have excess funds to be able to treat yourself, by all means.
Well, here's the thing. Yes, you should treat yourself, but then how do you define a treat?
Yeah.
So when I was on the treadmill and I was in that thing going round and round and round and round and round like a little hamster. And then one
Mm.
day I looked up and I was spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars for clothes to impress people
Yeah.
that I didn't even like.
Mm.
That's when I said, hey. And then my mom, she was kind of one of those persons. Well, you have to do this and you have to do that, and
Mm.
look, my mother sent me to etiquette school, right? So
Okay.
I'm like 8 years old and I'm wearing gloves and that's what. So I don't know what anyway, but that's but so my mom decided that she was going to buy me some Prada shoes
Oh
and
dear.
spend an inordinate amount of money for them. And, by this time I had had my epiphany. So I
Mm,
was not impressed, but I wasn't going to hurt her feelings and turn on, say, blah, blah, blah.
hmm.
So I took the shoes and I would wear them. But, I, when I work hard. And I don't care what at the time when I was in Congress or whatever, I worked hard. And when I put on a pair of shoes, I walk. I mean, it's not
Yes.
like I'm trying to just stand in one spot and look pretty and take pictures. And I have to get where I'm going, and I don't mind walking. And in fact, I enjoy walking. The shoes hurt.
Hmm.
The shoes hurt my feet. And so then I told my mom, I said, Mama, I don't know how much you paid for those Prada shoes, but I can't wear them because they hurt my feet. And then, it was like, okay, I get it, I get it, I get it. But you can consider like uh this or that, a name of this or that as a treat. But then how does that treat you?
Hmm.
That's another thing we got to think about. Whereas, you know what a real treat is? A real treat, one of the things that I really enjoy is going out in the country, having clean, fresh air to my heart's
Yes.
content, seeing a stream
Yeah, oh, yes.
or a babbling brook,
Hmm.
hearing that sound, not urban sounds, hearing that sound and taking like putting my hand in that cold running water. Isn't that's a treat? You know, really
Connecting with
honestly,
nature.
Mother Nature is a treat.
Hmm.
And so I went to part of when I got initiated into the Green Party. Really, I said, I've always been green, but I just wasn't a green. Don't talk to me about the Green Party now because they're just a mess, not just in the United States, but how can you have Green Party people supporting war? I mean,
Exactly.
I don't get that. And the German Greens are the worst. I mean, I haven't seen they supported the Iraq War
Hmm.
when everybody was against the Iraq War. The German Greens were for it. It's
Because, well,
unbelievable.
well, Cynthia, I think it was because there was weapons of mass destruction, wasn't there?
That's what they told us. That's what
Yeah,
they told us. But they should have known because they were the ones that provided the weapons of mass destruction.
exactly.
But they also knew that they were no longer there.
This sense, not common sense. Sense would dictate and would denote that the news, the media would provide this information and they're going to say these things. And if you don't want to remember, or even just go back and verify, because most people now walk around with something called a pocket computer, which we dub mobile phones, smartphones. You can access so much information on that. You can really like confirm, deny, or say, I don't think these guys are necessarily telling me the truth, rather than just accepting blindly everything that's
Only, but only if you know where to go online. Because now with the censorship
oh yes.
and the algorithms,
Hmm.
they make it darn difficult. In fact, I was looking at who was that was doing an investigation of Google search engine,
Ah,
DuckDuckGo. They did
yes.
all of the alternative search engines, not all of them, but many of
The
them,
main ones, yeah.
and they found that you put a term in for search and it might come up with 1 million hits.
Hmm.
But then you go to every one of those pages and it's the same
Same.
thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, over and over and over again. So you're not getting a million different sources.
Hmm.
You're getting the same sources a million times.
Which
So
is,
these guys
mm,
are restricting
yeah.
information by hook and by crook. They are restricting information. So you really almost, in order to do an effective search, you have to know the answer. You have to know the answer that you're searching for in order to be sure to include all of the terms
Yeah.
necessary in order to get closer to the truth. Otherwise, you're going to get the same propaganda page after page after page.
And there is another way to combat this, pardon self, but it's a lot more laborious and time heavy. All libraries have newspaper archives, and spending an hour or two just going through those archives and just thinking about, current events, and you look at the archives, it's an excellent way to dispel a lot of the stuff that's taking place, the misspeak, this Orwellian sort of style of talk, the neuro-linguistic programming, which seems to be so prevalent these days.
Well, here on the archive thing, the problem that I see with that is that, say, for example, when I was working on the Rwanda genocide, literally the facts would change
Mm,
while you're watching them. So here it's sort of like, what can I say? If you catch a story, the first iteration of that story is usually the one that's closest to the truth.
indeed. Indeed.
And then what they do is they go back and they edit the story and they
Yeah.
edit the truth out.
Hmm.
So even if you're trying to do something like, say, you're trying to do some historical research, and like the Rwanda genocide, they got a movie, they've
Yeah.
got all kind of stuff, all the New York Times best-selling books.
Yeah.
All of those sources are tainted. That's not the truth about what happened in Rwanda. And the only way you can get to the truth is to get to people who were actually there
Boots on the
at the
ground.
time.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, they're killing them. They're dead. They have already killed so many people who know the truth about what happened, who know the truth about who organized it and who
Mm.
orchestrated. They know the truth about the plane that was shot down holding the two democratically elected, who trained those troops to use shoulder-fired missiles. Well, they were trained at Fort Leavenworth in the United States.
Yes, I was just going to say, yeah. It's there. The information's there. The answers are there. It's just that the the social engineering of mankind and humanity has been done very well. There are glimmers of people kind of
Yes.
stirring in the consciousness wise, kind of challenging maybe little bits and pieces. But I think we just need more. We just need more people just challenge. For me personally, I'm sure with yourself, I challenge absolutely everything. Anybody tells me something, even if it's face to face, I always challenge it. Are you sure? Can you prove that? Did
Yeah,
you hear that? I
that's
want to
right.
know. I want to know the truth.
That's right. That's right. And that's what I told my students today. I said, you just question everything. Question everything I tell you. Question everything you read in the newspaper, you hear on television. Just question everything, and uh, learn how to dig deeply
Hmm.
and understand who wins and who loses by certain behaviors, certain policies. Ask that question. If you don't ask anything else, ask who's the winner as a result of this, and who's the loser.
Simple as. Thank you so much for your time. I know your time is just very, very precious. I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. Um, is there any links, websites, or anything you want to throw out, and I can include in the description?
Well, I wish people can go to my website, but I don't, I use my website now for my teaching, so I don't really keep up the other part of it, but it's, allthingscynthiamckinney.com. The only problem with that is that the bad guys get a hold of my website and they'll send you to a porn site if you don't type it properly. So you got to go into the HTTPS
Yeah,
colon // then you got to go into the www
yeah.
dot. If you don't do the www dot, you're gonna get, you're gonna your eyes are gonna bug out.
As I say, I will make sure I put the full hyperlink in the description. What about that
And
book
then,
you mentioned?
oh, probably what I should. Oh, you know what? If you look at my signature on my email,
Yeah,
I have links to all of my books. There's 4 of them, and I have all of my social media links there as well.
wonderful.
And then you can just copy that and
Yeah,
include it in the show notes.
wonderful, wonderful. I have 2 very last questions for you. Very first one
Okay.
is, have you had fun today?
Oh yeah, for sure. This is great, especially since it's audio only, and even though I am perfectly dressed because I just came from class, but audio only is a lot easier. It's easier. So one, that is great. Thank you for that. And
Hmm.
then the other thing is that you know we just talked. That's
Yes.
all. We
Hmm.
we just talked. And that's good. That's a good way. So people don't feel like, really intimidated or formal or whatever. We just had a conversation. We're just old friends getting together and
This is
catching
it.
up.
Exactly. A stranger is a friend you haven't met yet.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So thank you very much for this.
You're most welcome. And again, honors for your work that you have done and are continue to do. I mean, the historical work on a macro level and on a micro level now, the work that you're instilling in the future.
Yeah,
Potential leaders, movers and shakers and stuff. We need people to be investing into the youth, into those young, malleable minds, and
that's right.
allowing that potential to fully grow and ask and be a critical thinker. That's all I ask of anybody. Just critically think. You may not, you
That's
maybe only want to do it for 40% of your time, of the day. That's cool, but at least just think. Don't just accept everything, all the dogma, all of the traditions of man and all of that stuff. Just ask some questions. Study to show thyself approved.
that's right. That's right. That's right. Why is not a bad word.
Hmm, it isn't. Who, why, where, when.
That's right. That's right.
My
That's
very
right.
my very last one for you. Please tell us who you are, but don't tell us your name.
Okay. Who am I? Oh, that's the question I ask my students to tell me. Okay, who am I? I am a restless soul who wants to see a better world and tries to contribute to a better world every day.
Beautiful. Simple to the point, and I think that explains um your spirit, your actions, your deeds,
Yes,
which can never be
yes,
taken away. Sea Star, they can never be taken away. You can look on Wikipedia or on stupid websites and it'll say all kind of stupid stuff. That doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And I've had a lot of people say, "Oh, you're nothing like what I thought you were." And I get apologies all the time from people who said, "Well, I believe what the media said about you, but you're not like that at all."
No.
Basically, it was a kind of character assassination,
Yes.
and
Not kind
uh,
of. It was a character assassination.
yeah. But I accept that I was taught a lesson. I have a PhD in dirty politics now. I know how the game is played. I know who is playing the game. I know they have names and faces, and I know their names and I know their faces. That is dangerous, and why I have to stay on the move a lot too.
Hmm.
Um, but at the end of the day, it's just like my dad said, they put their pants on just like everybody else.
Exactly. And the Most High has got you, sis. He's got you, and he's put you in a position where as long as you've got the faith,
That's
and
right.
continue to do the works, he will be steadily by your side.
That's right. Well, I absolutely know that I have a guardian angel, because the things that I've done, I mean, people who are no longer with us have done lesser things,
Hmm.
and either they're no longer with us or they are in a very, very bad way. But I'm flourishing on the other side of the planet, and I'm, very happy, very satisfied, and still being my revolutionary self.
Give thanks, and we love you for it, sis. We love you for it. Um, Again, thanks for your time. Make sure you go over and check out all of the links below. For the readers, obviously it's a bit of a dying thing now, reading physical books and stuff, but for the
Yeah,
readers, the links are there. Make sure you support, like, comment, subscribe, share, and most definitely continue to be the best version of yourself every single day.
that's right.